and we never got to watch the last part of the session.
And I didn't see that till after we were done with our committee meeting, so I didn't have it all set up.
All right. Thanks, Margaret.
Yep.
Thank you guys.
You betcha. Okay, so all of my reference material is already in your Dropbox. And so I'm going to talk about some of the things that are available for you to use and really just give you a chance to go through the tools. Because a huge part of the ID is the veterinarian tools. And they're not necessarily easily accessible. They're a little bit hard to tell apart, but they're all totally doable. It's not too hard to figure them out once you get all the materials. I was lucky enough when I first started doing vet, that I went down to my vet and said, hey, could you get me one of each of these? And a lot of times they have an old one sitting around. But he bought new ones for us, and we've got a whole kit and caboodle of all the tools that are available, which really does make a difference for the kids being able to identify and see it, because once they've held a forceps in their hands and once they've seen what a rat tooth looks like, you know, you can look at it in a little piece of paper on a computer screen, but it does make a difference. Some of the references that I use to get started, if you go onto the national website, there's a thing about cleaning and working with surgical tools. And I included that in your Dropbox. So that's one of the things. I also found a description of all the different forceps, the scissors, all of that stuff. And I divided it all out into those components. So you're able to go through and see all of those. And then I made a book. So this is my kids' reference book. And they've got all the pictures in here that they can use. And I took all the tools out that we're going to be going through today, and I included those in your Dropbox too. So you can kind of see what I did. And this for me is really helpful because it's just all right there for the kids, and I can say, here you go. But obviously there's so much stuff out there. If you go to New Mexico FFA, boom, okay? They've got all the PowerPoints of all the different things, but sometimes they might not be as accurate as we'd like. Every now and then there's a mistake or an error. And maybe I'm making a mistake too. So you guys might tell me today something that I'm showing you that could be wrong. So what I do is I have my little special box there, and I go through and I have all the tools available. I'm going to turn this so Kendra can watch. Olivia and Mitt. Don't think there's anybody else in the weight room. Okay. So I have all the tools laid out, and I use the good old fashioned wraparound tags for the horticulture plants to go through and be able to identify them. So one of the things you're welcome to do today too is take pictures of all this stuff that's available. Now on your ID list, oh, and this is another thing too, if you don't have this little handy dandy book, I believe it's available through National FFA, and you can go through and find all these tools. More tools than just the contest ones. I've gone through and tagged them so we can find the ones that really do apply.
Is that on the CDE page as a reference material? Okay.
I think it's, and it's also in the catalog under the Core 24 portion of it. I think you can buy this there too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of these. And go through what they are and how they're identifiably different. And then what I want to do is I just want to pass the tool around. So if you want to take a picture with your camera at an angle where you can see the functional difference between them, you can do that, okay? So we'll start with forceps, everybody's favorite, the alligator forceps. So this is going to be able to go deep down and of course grab something. Want to pass that around if you want to take pictures, whatever you want to do. Then we have the Alice tissue, and there's two of the forceps. The Babcock tissue, and where's my Alice tissue right now? The Babcock tissue and the Alice tissue forceps kind of have the same formatted structure. The tips of the end curve in. But the Alice tissue forceps have teeth, okay? So when we look at this one, it's got little tiny teeth at the end. Where are we at? Little tiny teeth at the end of the curves. So they curve down and then they have the teeth there.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
I always tell my kids it starts with, it looks like the letter A is in between the teeth so that you know it's Alice.
Yeah.
So little tip to remember that.
That's a good way to do it. And then is Babcock
I was
tissue?
thinking Alice bites. Like-
Yeah. And isn't it amazing how those silly things, like when we get to Kelly, you know, my kids have a stupid one for that. So Babcock tissue is the same format, except Babcock tissue is smooth on the end. Well, not totally smooth, but just a little bit of a tooth, not the large tooth that the Alice tissue has. The next one on the list is the brown Adson. Didn't have time to set them in order. Okay. This one's another one. When we talk about thumb forceps are tweezers, essentially. And when you talk about your ratcheting forceps or your hemostats, that's going to be one that you can close and keep closed. I had a vet put one on one of my lambs. It was a bleeder. When he castrated it, it wouldn't stop. And that lamb went around for 2 weeks with a forceps stuck to its blood vessels underneath its belly, and finally it fell off, okay? So there's a difference between the basic format of how they're designed. This one has teeth, but basically there's a hollow center. So you're gonna see 2 rows of teeth going this way, and then the hollow center in the middle of it. So when you close it, it basically creates that circular opening. And the pictures that I chose for my little book that I made I've tried as much as possible to include that tip in the drawings. So you guys will also have pictures of all of these tips so that you can look at them and use that material. Krill is right here. And Krill and Kelly are the fun ones because Kelly only goes halfway. And that's the way my kids remember it. They both have teeth that go sideways along the jaw like this. Used to be on the list the Carmalt that had teeth that go like this down the full length of the blade. They took that one off and they left on Krill and Kelly. And Krill goes the whole way. So there's teeth all the way up the jaw, and Kelly only goes halfway. And you know high school kids. You can throw sex in it, it's all the better. Okay?
Never forget that one.
Nope. Hemostat mosquitoes, they're tiny. So this still has a krill-like jaw in it, but when you compare the size, you're talking about a smaller tool to use. So that's the one hard thing about the pictures, Okay, the pictures are hard. So you want the kids to kind of get used again to seeing the jaws, seeing the tools, seeing the amount of metal that's built into it, so that they can look at this little guy and say, well, that's probably a small one because it looks more refined and finer in size. And then the last of the forceps that listed is, of course, the good old rat tooth. And the rat tooth has 2 teeth on one side, 1 tooth on the other. Really, it's more of a rabbit tooth. But this one, I know that my vet uses this one a lot because this is one of his favorite tools.
Margaret, do you have a resource to buy the tools?
Like I said, my vet got them for me. And if anybody wants that, we could put together a list and I could see if they do it for other teachers. 4 years ago, this cost me about $350. So it's probably, yeah, probably more like $450, I would guess, just because of amounts of costs and all that stuff. But they're really willing to do anything to help out the FFA. So if I don't have any paper with, but if anybody wanted to gather names, I could sure ask if they do that.
NASCO sells I think it's called a surgical kit.
Yeah.
A Vet Tech surgical instrument kit with flashcards.
Ooh,
It's $369. It
There
comes
you
in a
go.
nice case that has a zipper. And they all have their little spot. It
ooh,
doesn't have all the tools. It has a lot. There's a couple bonus
Yeah.
extras that aren't on it.
okay, cool.
But to get started, that's pretty.
Yeah, that is a good, and that's a good amount, and flashcards are always a bonus. Okay, so that took
What
care
was
of
the name?
forceps. Do we have a question here?
Yeah, what did she say that Vet Tech surgical kit was called?
NASCO Veterinary Surgical Tool.
Assistant kit.
Vet Tech surgical instrument kit with identification flashcards.
Vet Tech Surgical Instrumentation Kit. And it's from NASCO.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we are going to go to needle holders. And this one's super easy for me because there's 2 needle holders. That's not a needle holder. There's the Mayo Heger and the Olson Heger. And for me, being an Olson, Olsons are smarter because they not only include the needle holder, but they also include scissors. Okay? The Mayo Heger does not. And if you've got to have the name of Olson on it, it's going to be the better tool because now you can do 2 things at once. And so that's really easy for me, and you're welcome to throw me under the bus with your kids on that one. But that's how I remember the difference between the 2. Again, stupid ways, but fun. All right, are we ready for some scissors? If you have not had the opportunity to go online and look up Lister bandage scissors, you should do it because there's like a 3-minute video of scissors spinning in midair. It's the stupidest thing in the world, but it's hilarious. Okay. So we've got 4 main scissors. There's actually more, but the main cutting type scissors are the ones that probably are the hardest to identify apart. And the Lister scissor is the nice metallic scissor with the foot pad. So that's going to go under the bandage. All I can figure out the difference, because this is a bandage scissor. All I can figure out the difference is for the bandage scissor, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, is just another type of bandage scissor.
My understanding is that that scissor on your right hand was named after the person who invented it.
Yeah.
And it can go through the autoclave.
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
Right.
It's autoclavable.
So it's an all metallic one. And this is a all metallic. That's kind of what I figured. But the Lister scissor is very famous. And everybody usually has one if they're working working around animals, obviously you don't want to cut the animal when you're cutting off a vet wrap or anything like that. So a Lister bandage and then a regular bandage scissor. And they both kind of have a foot pad so that it's not going to cut into the skin. So when you go underneath the bandage, it makes it a little easier for people to work. So those are the two bandage scissors. Then there's two regular cutting scissors, and it's all based on the amount of handle versus the amount of cutting surface. So you've got the Metzenbaum scissors, and you've got the Mayo scissors. And the Metzenbaum scissors have a much longer handle, a much shorter cutting surface, where the Mayo is more of a regular length of scissor. So Metzenbaum is the long handle, and Mayo is the shorter handle, longer blade. One of the things with all of these scissors, they can all be curved. And they can curve, I mean, a big curve, a partial curve, because a vet is going to have to use these for different things. So I have one here that's curved just to show that to the kids, because you could have this exact same scissor that's straight. So that's just a component to throw in when you're talking about it. Mayo and Metzenbaum. And then there are a couple other scissors. There is the suture wire cutter, and there is the suture removal. Okay, the wire cutting scissors looks intensive, like a wire cutting device. And if you open it, there's two little nicks here where a wire would fit in so that you can chop it, okay? This would be something where you're gonna have to cut a wire connector, maybe to get something taken care of within the animal. The suture removal scissor has a curve on the end of the bottom blade. And so it just has a little circular opening, whereas the wire cutter has the little notches right up here. And these, like I said, are all available for you on separate pages to be able to see. So those are two different cutting type tools. You also have a staple remover, because one of the wire things that you might need to remove from an animal is a staple. And so you have a staple remover as well. And it kind of does look like a staple mover, and it's a little bit more cheesy than some of the other tools. And one of the tools that I missed at the beginning that is intense is the backhouse towel clamp. And this guy, it cuts. Yeah, it's pretty pointy. And this is going to attach your surgical drape to the animal, to the area that you need to be working at and cleaning. So the backhouse towel clamp. There are some other fun ones. Obviously, we have the snook hook. And this is going to be used in a spay. We're going to make a smaller incision on the belly of the animal. We're going to be able to pull those uterine horns probably out and be able to remove the uterus externally instead of internally, so we don't have to go and disrupt the animal as much. And of course, if anybody in here doesn't know what a dental scaler is, they haven't been tortured through hell at the dentist themselves, because a dental scaler is a dental scaler. It's the same thing they use on us. So these are two that you can use. And one of the things with this, there are snook hooks that are skinnier and have kind of a ball point on the end of them. So you got to get the kids used to the general shape and kind of arrangement of the tool, because they all could look just like the curved ones, a little bit different depending on the model. Everybody, I'm sure, knows what a scalpel handle is, or if you don't, I've got one here. But I've also got some other general tools. And the main intention of this time was to talk about the surgical tools, but is there anything else you guys have a question with the identification?
Do you print a book for every single kid on your team, or how does that work out?
Yeah, I have 3 separate ones. I have this, I have the breed ID, and then the parasite. And
And you said you made those.
I made
books?
these just myself, just going through and finding pictures.
Okay.
Because I did floriculture before, since Tamara was in here, and you always find pictures with the wrong plant. Every time it's the damn wrong friendship plant. Or, so I guess because of that, I just sat down for a week and just started pulling out all the tools that I could find. Going through and looking at them. Okay, what do we got? Hoof knife. Okay. Ooh,
A magnet?
Goes on the end.
My favorite one.
yep. This is going to be your rectal ring.
Prolapse ring.
Yeah.
Oh,
Rectal prolapse ring.
It is.
Winner! I
Yeah,
got one right.
rectal prolapse ring. We would use this with this tool.
Oh, the elastrator?
Yeah, so this would go right inside, and then the extra flesh could be pinched off. And then the idea behind that is that they scar on that area, so it keeps it tucked in. Have you ever done that with a goat?
No, I use iodine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if
And
you have a
inject it.
rectal prolapse, you put iodine on the outside and that scars it.
Yeah.
Way better than, because otherwise you gotta do that little thing.
I
Well,
know.
Sorry, that's not happening.
Really
because they're
small.
spraying to get it out.
And of course, if you haven't done the elastrator before, you do also have rings as part of what is on the list. So elastrator rings. And if you've never used a big elastrator on a bull, they can be like that big, severely thick. They kind of look huge. So,
Are they calibrate bands on them?
elastrator bands.
Or let's see.
Bands, castration bands,
Yeah.
Okay,
bands.
it's not bad, okay.
Okay.
They don't keep them straight. Sorry. No, you're fine. I'm surprised they don't have Verdizo on there.
I think there might be a lot of men on that committee.
They can only handle the elastrator, not the
Yeah.
Verdizo. Nice.
Okay, what we got?
Chains,
Yeah.
yeah, and handles.
Chain and handle.
Drench syringe or stomach tube.
Small animal feeding tube, I think is what it's listed as. Small feeding tube for small animals.
You say it not exactly that way, like IV.
They only, you
It's
only
only-
have to match.
Okay.
So that kind of takes care of some of the
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's 2 of these on the list.
I was gonna say it's
Well, if you read the nationals, it's called the human twitch.
Yeah.
But it's the humane twitch. So this, and then there's also the chain twitch on there.
right.
So both of these are on the list. And of course, a fun one,
Magnet.
rumen magnet.
Liver disease. Yeah.
I always wondered how they got my poop out of my dog. They're like, I got an example. I was like, how'd
Yeah.
you do that so fast? They wait like half
Yeah.
hour. It's like, man, you got that back there, you poop stuff.
Snap their fingers, they've got a magic touch.
Okay. IV administration kit. A lot of times they'll come up nicely. If they don't open up the package, it's all in a nice little package for you. So you've got, in this case, your bag, and you might not have that on the IV administration kit itself, because that could be from basically here to here. And this has 2 types of tape around it. If you've never seen autoclave tape that's been exposed, this shows autoclave tape that has not been exposed to the autoclave and tape that has been. So the regular stuff that just looks like Scotch tape is your regular autoclave tape, and then your exposed one, it's been through the autoclave, it's been sterilized. Oh, this is an old one. And that was the thing, there was a new one of these, I think, on state ID this year. Yeah.
Which was which though? I always get confused.
I bet this is probably the
That's the
Trocar.
Trocar, and that's the
That's the
whole,
one.
yeah.
A cannula, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So we're gonna go
Thanks.
into your room and
Yeah. get
Let
it
all
out
the
of
air
there.
out.
Stand down fast.
All right. Do not be in the direction of it.
And another one where you can have big variations in size and look is your bowling gun, or your bolus gun, as a lot of people call it. This one's for a lamb, but you can have ones 3 times the size for cattle. You can have metal ones, all sorts of different things that you can see.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Endotracheal tube. Has anybody found a source for laryngoscopes? It would be. There's a couple of these things here if you wanted to have them that would be kind of pricey. I mean, I don't think I'm gonna set up a cattle squeeze chute outside my classroom just to show the kids that.
Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah. If you're like, yeah. But what do they call it on the list? Tomcat. Tomcat urinary catheter. And then this goes and can be attached on the outside so that it holds it in place. One of the things that gets a little confusing is some of the bandages. And this is the Elasticon. I haven't seen it in other colors. I've only seen it in the regular kind of beige color. And typically it's got a stripe down the middle. And then of course we all know vet wrap, because the fun thing about vet wrap is for animals, it's way cuter than for people. Okay. And of course,
I was gonna say it's the crown. Elizabeth, look at that.
yeah,
It's a cereal eating cup.
it is.
I've used one of those.
That works for me. Okay. All right. Any questions or any other tools you guys can think of that you might have run across that you might not know?
Suture needles?
Yes.
One's like a triangle, right? And the other one's
You've got the taper
yeah, one's
and the cutting. So that's
taper just gets smaller. And the cutting area is right. Okay, yes.
there's your cutting.
Okay.
And you can have a cutting suture needle that's shaped like an S. Joe Swannick gave me one that you just basically, instead of using a needle holder,
See, I wasn't sure.
you
Oh,
twist it
they're
in.
huge, right?
Yeah.
They're big.
They're like
Okay,
this
yeah,
big.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yep. It's really nice.
Is this 3 and 4? Are we in 3
Yeah,
and 4?
3
Yes,
and
you're
4.
in
Yep.
3 and 4. Perfect. I'll just
Here,
say
let's
right
do
here.
that.
Okay, I gotta see if my room is the same.
Yes, full sure you're here.